And we are live once again. It's another episode of Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source coming at you right here. And I'm here again with my good friend, the author of Vendetta Dark and the upcoming Congratulations, You Suck, and the director of Ghost Toasters. It is Josh Peterson. How are you, my friend?
Boo, hey, thanks for having me.
That's right. It is the scary Halloween edition of Pop Culture Cosmos. We are so grateful to be on the air, broadcasting to each and every one of you out there. We are so thankful for you listening to us. We truly appreciate you coming back for more each and every week, right here at 10 p.m. Eastern and 7 p.m. Pacific on the Podcast Radio Network. John, we truly appreciate you allowing us to be on each and every week. We hope everyone out there just enjoys what we do. We also want to give a shout out to the Tangent Radio Network, also one of our affiliates as well. Appreciate everything that you do for us. And as I'm hoping as soon as you hear this, it's the ESO Network. I want to say welcome aboard to the Pop Culture Cosmos. Thanks for delving into it. We appreciate it. And we hope for good things on your network as well. Anything as far as if you got a question out there, just email us popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, there's a lot of good things to talk about this week because it is a strange week. Sorry for that, but I had to say it. It is a strange. Yeah, it's a strange week indeed because Doctor Strange is due out this week in theaters, and we are definitely looking forward to it as, big fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But before we get into more Doctor Strange, because we got just a little taste last week, but we want to delve into it even more with our comic book expert, Josh, right here. But I recently, on our home site, popculturecosmos.wordpress.com, wrote an article in regards to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I know Josh has taken a little bit of time in between, his hysterical laughing, I'm sure, as he read it, as far as my thoughts from worst to first on how the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been shaped and been formed, and my thoughts on exactly the highs and lows of that cinematic universe. So I know you've had a chance to check it out, and I know you have your own thoughts over the course of your many years of watching the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And since you are a comic book expert and the man in the know when it comes to comic books, what are your thoughts on the Marvel Cinematic Universe first off?
Okay, so I got your list out here, and let me ask you this. Did you arrange them in order of
worst to first, baby?
worst to first? So are these your favorites, or are these like what you think is key for people to like get it?
Well, no, it's not an importance of this is the one you. Well, actually, you know what it is, because these are one of the factors that I did is weighing in on it was my choices were based off of importance to the cinematic universe, but also as well just as enjoyable film, because some of the Marvel Cinematic Universe films have suffered from a lack of cohesion in their story, which relates to a lack of storytelling for the Marvel Cinematic Universe overall. So I guess you could say from that standpoint, yes, but for the most part, it's based on my preferences as a reviewer, as someone who reviews films and takes a look at the best side and the worst side of each film. So that's my list from worst to first. So, take a look at it, see what you like, but your thoughts so far, as if you've read it, and what do you think? Well, we're starting from the Thor films because leading in from the Hulk film to the Thor films, those are the weakest points in my thought process as far as the low points in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I feel like Thor gets a really bad rap just because it's such a different tone compared to all the other Marvel movies. Like Guardians of the Galaxy, that was good, that was funny. They did that correctly, but Thor is people love Thor, but his movies get so much crap. Like I don't understand it. You need to have Thor to like Thor is a lot of like the connecting points for like the different realms of Marvel. And this is going to be especially important going forward into Doctor Strange. But I know that the first Thor movie was, it was odd. It wasn't really that great, but the second Thor movie I thought was fantastic. And I'm going through your list here, and I totally agree with your top 5. So you have Captain America: The Winter Soldier for 1, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, The Avengers 3, Captain America: First Avenger 4, and Iron Man for 5. I agree with all of those choices except Captain America: The First
and I know
Avenger.
everybody has that says that. I know I can understand it, but as a straight telling origin story, there is, for me, no better experience. Iron Man comes close, but as a straightforward, I have not seen the origin story for Doctor Strange, but as a straightforward origin story, well, I guess you could say the Guardians of the Galaxy is probably the best of the origin stories if you wanted to go that far into that realm. But as a singular entity, straightforward, for me, it's the easiest. It's probably of all the films that because they almost all of them pop up on FX. It's probably the easiest one for me to watch and get into on a time by time basis, because it's just, to me, just an easy watch, very enjoyable, straightforward. It's not quirky, doesn't go off on a side rant or anything like that nature. It's just really just a solid, very solid origin tale. It maybe in that sense a lot of people are turned off by it because it really didn't do anything fantastic at any one area, but it just tells a straightforward story, and as an origin story for me, it was kind of nice to see that, because it becomes that much of more better for origin story for me, because it's from that era. He is the original Avenger. He's thought of in that realm, and I think because the fact that it differentiates itself because it comes from World War II in that standpoint, maybe that made it a little better for me. But for me, it's a very easy watch whenever it comes on television. I've actually watched it several times again on DVD, so that's why it's so high up on my list. Thor: The Dark World. I'm glad you enjoyed it. First of all, I'm not gonna say otherwise as far as your enjoyment and what you got out of the film, but you are definitely one of the few I've come across that actually would put it higher on the list as far as it's concerned, because I've seen, my judgment's not off those other lists, but I've evaluated since I did my own and off of other lists, and I've seen that Thor: The Dark World from a critical standpoint is just not that high up on the food chain.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I definitely get that, and I get why people wouldn't like it, but it's kind of like Captain America. It's a critical movie. You need to have Thor to the new one to really understand like what's going on next. Where's this going? We're seeing Thanos. We're seeing Guardians of the Galaxy. We're seeing, we're going to see all of these entities come together soon, and Thor is really the connecting point.
And don't get me wrong, I understand his relevance in the Avengers universe. Don't get me wrong. I respect and appreciate his his presence there. It's just the movies themselves, outside the relationship between him and Loki, obviously Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston, they mesh right away. Their interaction with each other makes both movies worthwhile as far as a watching event. It's just when you get outside of that realm and it tries to tell any type of cohesive story, especially in the Dark World, it just seems to fall apart at the edges. From the small, tiny town in New Mexico type feel on the first movie to the interdimensional interplay that they tried to have you go through, and in the second one, it just seemed to not really just hold together as a movie as well as some of the others in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
It's definitely a removal from what you're used to. So you have we're watching Iron Man, we're watching Captain America, and all these movies are take place on Earth. So we've yet to see like these mystical realms, and I think that's kind of what pulls people out of it. But I think to me, your list goes from like what you enjoy watching. I kind of stopped having expectations with comic books because I've read all these comic books, so I look at it like, okay, what did these filmmakers look at the task that they had set before them, and how well did they tell the story? So that's kind of how I look at it. So to me, like Thor would be a ridiculously difficult movie to make just because he has such a rich backstory, such a rich universe. And to me, like the filmmakers, I think they it wasn't that exciting, the first one. They did a good job of taking all of that story they needed to tell and packing it into like a 2-hour movie. And Captain America, my biggest disappointment with Captain America, I like it. I'll watch it. I would definitely watch that over like the Hulk. But to me, it's they had the Red Skull he is such a psychotic bad guy. Like he is violent, he's nasty, he's vile, and they really downplayed that part about him in the movie.
They toned that down considerably. I will agree with you on that, but I think it was just obviously to create that maybe the rating, the audience, and it like I said, one of the faults of Captain America: The First Avenger is that it stays within a safe realm the entire way that many people have faulted for. I kind of like the way it presented itself within that safe, generic realm of an origin story. It didn't try to do too much. But again, like I said, like you said, I am somewhat familiar with the Red Skull and as far as him in the comic book sense, and I understand that he's way more out there as a bad guy than what he was represented on screen. But I think if that was the case and he was that type of wildness, or if he's that type of really, really go forward bad guy, it would have differentiated from the film as a whole, and it would probably just presented a different kind of contrast that I don't think would have meshed well with the film overall.
Right. I can see why they didn't go that route, just because that universe is new and they're working on expanding it. So Captain America is really important for the Avengers that comes next. It's disappointing, kind of like you read the comic books and you're expecting this, and then it kind of just lowers your expectations a bit. That's all. But I want to ask you about Captain America: Civil War. So I agree that it should be high up on the list, but looking back on it, it's just, what did you think of the movie?
Well, it is high up on my list as far as the reason why it was so high up on my list, because it also, I know one of the things that you like to talk about is how certain Marvel movies, when they don't play a certain role, like for instance, we talk about Ant-Man all the time being like a heist movie, and it often portrays itself, and often people identify it as being different because it portrayed itself as kind of like a heist movie. And then you have the Guardians of the Galaxy, which we have stated previously as well, that it is more like a sci-fi and it presents itself in more of a sci-fi fashion. Well, to me, Captain America with the Winter Soldier is so high up on my list is because it presented itself to me as almost like a spy thriller. And that to me was very different from what I was expecting and what I thought I was going to see when I sat down into the movie the first time I watched it. And each time I watch it, it still has an enjoyability factor, even though obviously I know what's going to happen and whatnot. It still has it's made very slick. It's very stylistic. The pacing is well done. I think it keeps you intrigued and interested at all times. And I think Robert Redford's performance as one of the bad guys, and Marvel bad guys get a bad rap, and rightly so. I think he represents one of the best bad guys in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And frankly, if anybody had ever wondered or didn't even know who's this guy, who's this old guy, what's he all about, and didn't understand who Robert Redford is, and as far as American cinema is concerned, I think they got a great taste of what he still could do, still can do as far as it's concerned. And it just, to me, it was just an overall package of a slick presentation, a good Marvel bad guy that they really just presented well, and also the fact that Captain America was put in a different perspective, in a different spotlight of not him being the hero per se, but him being the hunted and still trying to portray himself and still trying to be the hero at the same time and save lives.
Yeah, it was a great movie. The Winter Soldier was a really good movie. I liked it because it's relatable for like people. So you have, we live in this system where politicians are doing things that make people who are really like good people look bad. I'm not talking about Donald Trump. We're not going to get into that, but it's it because you can't trust anybody, and that's what I loved about Captain America, and that's the only way I got my dad to watch that movie, is because he hates superheroes, hates comic books, hates the movies they're based on. But he sat down and watched the whole thing from beginning to end, and he absolutely loved it. So I look at that and I see like, okay, so that was a good movie, because you can take someone who isn't a comic book fan and make them watch it, and they would watch it from beginning to end and they would love it. So they did a really good job with that.
You would tell somebody that's not familiar with it, do you like thrillers? Do you like James Bond movies? Do you like Slick's the Mission Impossible series? To me, it fit more in. If you take it out of context and you don't put Captain America on it, and you take it and you watch the movie, you would put it more in line with those films than the Avengers or anything of that nature, because it just differentiates itself so much, and it presents itself in such a slick fashion, and presents itself as a thriller, and it just seems to me like it was more of a spy, almost like a Cold War spy drama in many sense for me, that it just seemed very enjoyable from that aspect, and it was quite different than what I was going to sit down and watch, as far as what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, it reminded me of a Jason Bourne film. I was half expecting him to pull off the cowl and see Matt Damon behind that mask.
Exactly. Yes, indeed. Yeah, the Bourne movies too. The James Bond, Bourne, Mission Impossible movies. It seems like that movie fits more in line with those, and to me, that's why it seemed so enjoyable, because it was well done and it did not fit the superhero mold, which sometimes doesn't work, because there are origin stories within the universe that doesn't fit the superhero mold, and when they try to break out of it, it doesn't come across as well. But this was one occasion where I think it fit really well. What are your thoughts? I know we also talked about Guardians of the Galaxy and what your thoughts on that are. What are your thoughts on maybe the Avengers as a whole, the first time that they came out as the Avengers and tried to go at it against well, obviously they tried to save New York and whatnot. So what are your thoughts on the original Avengers movie and how that portrayed itself out, how the leading up to it? Do you think it was well executed from that standpoint, and the actual Avengers movie itself?
It was yeah, I think it was well executed. It made a whole lot of money, and the buildup that they had, it almost like fit seamlessly into the other movies. There were parts when I thought that they made Loki kind of, I don't know how to describe it. Like they made him look like this really like big bad guy, and then they just kind of took that, like the tones were changing too much with him.
Because what he was, even though he wanted to portray himself as the leader of the earth and whatnot, he would constantly get the smackdown every now and then from Thanos and whatnot.
Yeah, it was that, and the fact that he was conflicted about what he was doing. I think they should have made him like crazier. They should have made him, don't make him look like he's in control of the situation, because he got himself caught on purpose, and then he hangs out at Tony Stark's building and talks all this game, and then he ends up getting beat up by the Hulk. But there's he really just, the whole movie, he's kind of like, he was Thanos's his bitch. So is the best way I can think to put that. But It was good. It had plenty of action. I watched, you go back and you watch it now, and you're like, okay, the build, the first time you watch it is really good, but then you go back and watch it, you just kind of want to get to the action part. So you're like, okay, the build up kind of takes a long time. And that's what I loved about the second Avengers, is that you didn't need that build up. Everyone was already together, so you can just kind of watch them. Okay, I've gotten used to seeing explosions and people fighting each other. Let's just throw them right into it. And then boom, Avengers 2 opens up with that scene in the forest, and it was awesome.
And that, excuse me, and that was, I guess that sequence was really good for me as far as Ultron is concerned, but that movie did not pan out as well as I would have liked, because I thought the movie itself served too many masters as far as trying to set up too many movies in a different way than I guess the original Avengers movie did, which I found problematic, because the dream sequences for Thor didn't seem to fit in or mesh very well, and just to me, it was not something that wasn't as well executed as the original Avengers movie. Or do you disagree with that?
No, I agree. That, I mean, especially with a big connected universe like this, you're going to have problems with introducing characters, fan service. Amazing Spider-Man 2 suffered that problem. Batman vs Superman definitely suffered that problem. Have you watched Luke Cage on Netflix yet?
No, I have not as of yet. I know I want to. I heard really strong reviews on it. Probably some of the best reviewed series. I heard it's really good in the beginning and in the middle, and then kind of tails off as far as the end of the series goes. But overall, it plays out really strong. And I know within that universe of the Netflix Marvel universe, as I'll call it, it represents itself as one of the better series of the mix.
Yeah, I liked it up until the last episode. I was the same way with Jessica Jones. I thought that it kind of Kilgrave should have died a little sooner than he did. But with Luke Cage, they want to set up the next season. They want to set up Defenders. They want to set up Iron Fist. They want to prop all this stuff up. So they kind of get lazy with their storytelling. They don't want to tell any story in the next season, so they just want to be able to jump right into it. And that was the problem with Luke Cage. It had really good, because I could not guess any of the plot lines. So that was, props on that. But you get to the last episode and you have this amazing buildup, and then there's just, it's really short. The end of it's really short, and it's kind of anticlimactic. And then they spend the last 20 minutes, they could have been like making a better ending, but they spend it trying to set up all these things that are coming in the future. And I think that's one of the problems that Marvel has. A lot of their movies are basically boosters for other movies. We need to introduce this character and this character, and that was where you kind of got muddled down with like Thor: The Dark World. You're introducing the Collector, and then you have Guardians of the Galaxy, who they just want to let you know, okay, Thanos is still out there, guys. Don't forget about Thanos. We're not going to talk about him for 3 movies, but don't forget he's still out there waiting to do his thing. So I think Marvel kind of suffers from that a little bit.
Do you think that the Netflix Marvel Universe should be included in the Infinity Wars? I know there's going to be a ton of superheroes within the Infinity Wars saga, but do you see that there is a need for the Netflix? Because there's been a lot of fans clamoring for the Defenders to be added within that realm. Do you see that happening, and do you think it's necessary?
It has to be done tastefully. It would be awesome, honestly. I was really hoping to see Daredevil in Civil War, because I don't know if you've read the comic books, but he has a really cool part in that series. So I hope so. I want to see it personally, but only if it's done tastefully, because I know you're going to have so many heroes that you can't really give them all a great storyline. Like in Civil War, like say they wanted to put the Punisher in there. In Civil War, the Punisher shows up for like 5 seconds, and it's not really a big part. So they would have to handle it tastefully, because the fans want it. I think the fans want it, but they would probably rather have those characters not be in it than have them be in it and not really doing anything, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does, and that's going to be the big task: is can you get all these superheroes within one confined movie and be able to make them all matter within that movie and make fans of all those characters happy with what they were given in the movie. I know that's going to be a big task that's presented. We'll have to see what happens there. But moving back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, were there any movies within the Marvel Cinematic Universe that you feel needs to get more love, needs to get more appreciation, and one that you think is really overrated?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I know we've talked about this before, but Ant-Man. Just let me tell you about Ant-Man. Ant-Man was a great movie. They had a hero. They took a hero basically that wasn't exciting. He didn't have, he shrinks and he can move like a bullet. That's, he doesn't have a magical hammer. There's no fancy backstory there. Scott Lang is, he's a West Coast Avenger and he's not really in a lot of the comic books. So they took an obscure character, an obscure alter ego, and they made a really great movie. I think people give it crap because it's not all explosions and destruction. It had told a genuine story, and it seems like moviegoers aren't really fond of great stories these days.
I get to your point there. I personally didn't like the back half of it, as far as the ending boss battle, I guess, what you could, for lack of a better term. I kind of thought it was not really the best representation. Obviously, they needed to go ahead and have that small setting take place in it. But I thought after, once they got in, like, for instance, the helicopter scene and whatnot, I thought that was really just not very well executed. But up until that point, I thought it was a delightful movie as far as what to watch, the training sequences, the the ants themselves and how they were coordinated, on screen, with obviously with all the CGI. But and Michael Pena was truly enjoyable to watch. There were some of the other actors were not exactly the most well drawn out characters, but Michael Pena's performance really just made that part of it enjoyable, and that, I think, it gives it that quirky tone that makes, for a lot of people like yourself, makes it really stick with people on that. I just wish the back end of the movie had been a little bit better constructed.
Right, and there wasn't really a big baddie in that case. It's just a guy in a wasp suit. So naturally there wasn't going to be like a big showdown. The trains, they were kind of funny. They were there, but they didn't really serve a purpose. Was it okay? So as far as like a movie that I think is overrated, overhyped, I would have to say Civil War, because that was, to me, that's the biggest alteration of the comic books that they have done yet, and there was a lot of things in there that it's a lot of whining. Like the characters just whine, and it doesn't make sense to me that they would have Robert Downey Jr. They should, like, Tony Stark. He absolutely loves what he does. Like in these hero movies, and like in the end of Avengers: Age of Ultron, he was not the depressed guy seeking redemption for things that he was in Civil War. So it was kind of a big contrast, and it didn't really make any sense. Yeah, I feel like if they would have stuck to the comic books, if they would have waited a couple years and stuck to the comic books, they could have made that movie so much better. And it's just too much back and forth, too much drama. It was an enjoyable flick, but it was not something that I would rank high on my list of Marvel movies.
Well, I told you my issue with it, as far as the movie, Civil War and whatnot. I enjoyed the first half. The first half was excellent. Outside of the thing where it comes down to is Daniel Bruhl's character. Daniel Bruhl's another weak Marvel villain, and I think he is probably the weakest of all of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that's not to his fault; it's the way it was written. But Captain Zemo should have been Baron Zemo. It should have been something that had been dealt with and had been created to be something more representative of the comic book, because I think that would have worked out even more. And there was an opportunity there to have the as far as the disciples of evil, there were all, it was all set up to be, to have the villains of evil right there and whatnot, and to be able to go ahead and try and meet the Civil War and meet all the good guys on their own terms with some really powerful entities by his side. And they chose to go a very different route. And it was like this cut and dry, okay, they're all dead. And there's really just a lame excuse why. And it's just kind of really just, the first two acts were really good, and the third act just went downhill, straight downhill, like a bullet. And when you have the first two acts do so well and be so good to an audience, and then you have a third act that just really goes downhill like that, it's really disappointing for someone as they're leaving the theater, like I did, and said, "Oh man, this could have been just really so much better executed. It really could have been something special."
Yeah, the entire movie relied so heavily, spoiler alert, it relied so heavily on that plot twist of Bucky killing Tony Stark's parents. And it was a plot twist that didn't really make sense if you think about it, because where were they going? What were they doing? Why was he out there? I know they had something that the Russians obviously wanted, but it doesn't make any sense. They kind of just seem like they were making it up as they go. And that the last scene when they're in the bunker, can you imagine how cool that would have been if instead of Steve Rogers and Tony Stark fighting each other and Tony Stark crying about everything, if they would have let those super soldiers out and they would have
the Masters of Evil.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was trying to say. If they could have been, if they would have let Baron Zemo become Baron Zemo and let the Masters of Evil rise when they had that opportunity to do so, it would have made, for me anyways, a much more enjoyable film. I think it just was really just such a letdown. And I understand it was the Civil War, it's the theme of the movie, fighting each other. But like you explained, just a lot of contingencies are there when it comes to the death of Tony Stark's parents. And it's kind of really, convenient that they crashed when there was a camera there and it was in the, early 1990s. And it just too much it takes your imagination too far. It really didn't do as well a job of storytelling as at the end as I wanted it to. And I think they really had a good opportunity to do something special and just didn't want to go in that direction.
Yeah, exactly. And it disappointed me. It had really good build up, and then you got to that last scene. I don't know. To me, it felt lazy. Like it felt really lazy. When you got, like you said, the last act, to me, like the writing the potential was there. It was there, and they just kind of like chucked it out because they didn't want to do anything with it. And especially that last scene doesn't make sense to me. Like how Captain America he magically found that prison that's buried under water, and then he got in there, killed whatever the hundreds of military personnel in there, and got everyone out. It's just little tiny things like that you notice, and it just kind of ruins it for you.
It does indeed, and it takes your opinion away from Captain America as this being all do-gooding person and always trying to find the righteous path to even go that route. Yes, to save his friends, that's true, but to even go that route and how he went about it. But it's just was just so disappointing from that realm. I know that the movie garnered over $1 billion. It is still the highest amount as far as that's been earned so far this year from the box office standpoint. And I know it's done really well once it's come to home video. But I think from a standpoint that, again, the third act could have been so much better. I think it would have made for a film that could be longer thought of in the consciousness of fans, because the Avengers is one of the most watched films of the new millennia here. You know, when it plays on television, and it's still highly thought of and highly watched and highly viewed by audiences. I think it could have retained that factor, and a lot of people are going to have that, still have that wow feeling when they see the airport scene. But I think the third act will cause it eventually for it to be put on the backside of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right, and I'll say it again. It had the potential to be great, and it just didn't really reach that potential. Can you imagine if they would have waited and actually gone according to the Civil War comic book? Once they had all those heroes introduced, like that ending scene with Steve Rogers getting shot, like that is just so, to me as a comic book fan, that was so emotional. Like I thought about crying. So it was just really, it was great, and they could have done that, and they were in such a hurry. They want to make money. They want to introduce these characters that they just got lazy, and they didn't see how good it could have been.
Couldn't agree with you more on that. So for more on Marvel Cinematic Universe, check out my thoughts from worst to first on the Marvel Cinematic Universe in one of my latest articles on popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. Coming up next, right after the break, we are going to talk fall gaming, and we're going to talk what we like and what we may not like about some of the titles that are coming up this fall season. Coming up right after the break. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back. It's Gerald Glassford once again from the Pop Culture Cosmos, along with my good friend Josh Peterson, author of Congratulations, You Suck, Vendetta Dark, and the director of Ghost Toasters, which you'll be able to see quite soon on YouTube. Actually, by the time this comes out, it'll be available on YouTube. Is that correct? Ghost Toasters Episode 2?
Correct. It's released in 2 parts. The first one will be out Saturday, next part Sunday, so look out.
It'll be on there, and so check it out, Ghost Toasters, when you're going on a search. But it'll also if you really want to take a look at it, and if you have trouble finding what on, check out popculturecosmos.wordpress.com, and we'll have it right there on the front for you. Take a look on the right-hand side at our latest videos, and it'll be right there for you indeed. So we're back. And I wanted to make sure before we get into fall gaming that we give a shout out to all of our good friends, Retro City Games in Henderson, Nevada, Mario Party Wars, Wine, Women, and Words on YouTube. We want to check out that podcast. Mario Party Wars, again, like I said, a great organization. Follow them on Twitter and Facebook. Retro City Games, like I said, the best gaming store in all of Southern Nevada. I want to check them out on our Facebook. You'll actually find us recording every now and then live on the Retro City Games Facebook page. Indeed. Also, as well, you want to check out RobMcCallumFilms.com for all of his latest and greatest information on all of his projects that he has either done, like Nintendo Quest, the award-winning documentary. Well, it's not award-winning, it's a hit documentary, I should say. The hit documentary. And then also check out one of his latest, Missing Mom, which has won awards all around the world and is currently going to film festival after film festival, winning praise indeed. So check out information on that. And you can also download Nintendo Quest Power Tour, which might have a personal appearance by yours truly. Might sneak appearance in there. You want to check that out. The He-Man documentary, Box Art, the docuseries, a lot of great stuff going on at RobMcCallumFilms.com. Well, and they also can't not forget, if you have any problems getting a hold of the live version of Pop Culture Cosmos, getting a hold of the podcast radio network version of Pop Culture Cosmos. You can check us out on iTunes, Google Play, podcast.com, and also WordPress. By going to popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. So we're back talking gaming, and it is that right in the middle of that crunch season. It is the fall season, and it is the busiest time of year for gamers. One release after another release after another release, AAA game after AAA game coming out, and it is now hot and heavy, and we're right in the thick of it. There's titles coming out. Call of Duty, that is really right around the corner. There's Dishonored 2 we talked about earlier before we went on the air. But there's a couple, there's Skyrim that just came out. There's a couple of games I want to talk about from EA. And I kind of have a little thing as far as maybe I want to discuss on it, because Battlefield 1 came out a couple weeks ago and followed soon after recently by Titanfall 2. Both first-person shooters, set in different parameters. I get that. But they're both first-person shooters. So if you were running EA, and Josh, we now have you running EA, so you have your hands on all that Star Wars projects that are out there, would you have gone back-to-back with the same type of first-person shooter genre?
First of all, thank you for the promotion. And second of all, I probably wouldn't have. That would be like, Marvel releasing 2 movies on the same day. You don't really want to compete with yourself.
But in essence, they are, because you have 2 first-person shooters that are literally released by the same company week after week. Not to mention the fact that your leading competitor is coming out the week after. So that makes it even more, because you've got an audience now that's already trying to decide between 2, and then the leading first-person shooter comes out right after that, making it even more difficult for you to get a good share of the audience. Does it not?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And I'm almost confident that they thought about this before they did it. So, we're probably just questioning what they've already questioned. But yeah, with you have Call of Duty coming out, which I am not looking forward to. They could have spaced it out. They could have had Battlefield come out this week, or even Titanfall come out this week, and then Call of Duty, and then maybe even release Battlefield on the same day as Call of Duty, because then we could have finally found out like what people like better. Maybe Battlefield could have been the Call of Duty killer finally, and then, or maybe they could have released it afterwards. It's just, there's a bunch of possibilities. It just didn't seem like a good marketing strategy, but I'm sure they had a reason for doing it. What that reason is, I don't think we'll ever know.
Not offhand, although maybe in the years coming down the line, some of the people will be unhappy that are involved with the studios that this decision was made. Kind of found it troubling that they would go to such lengths to promote both, but then release both within 1 week of each other. You're basically trying to split your audience in essence, knowing full well that your leading competitor is coming up right behind you. So it kind of didn't make sense to me, but you know what, that it is what it is. They're both out. They're both really solid games, but asking people to pay $120 for 2 different games that are in the same genre, they're both multiplayer shooters. Not a lot of people are going to make that choice.
Yeah, and clearly there are more Battlefield fans out there than there are Titanfall. Titanfall is a great game. Don't get me wrong, I haven't played the new one yet, but I've heard great things about it, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. But just me being at the store this week, I saw people pick up Battlefield. It was selling like crazy, and I didn't see really a lot of people looking at Titanfall.
Well, I think it's a name value too, because Titanfall, the original Titanfall, came out very strong at the beginning, but then the community died off, and then also the lack of single player content really didn't help it at all. Because as much as we like to say, people don't play the single player content, and Call of Duty doesn't, when people play Call of Duty or Battlefield, they just bypass the single player. The main knock on it is that there wasn't a single player, and plus the community itself died out shortly after. So even though it was a well thought of game, it could have been something even more special. And the reviews have come out very strong. I'm looking forward to sitting down, hopefully, playing a few sessions myself. But for the time being, I see Titanfall 2 getting the short end of the stick when it comes to the EA food chain and where they're going to go from there. It's great that they're going to support it with free DLC. It's great that they actually now support it with a strong single player campaign. But to release it, this would have been a great game to release in September. I really think it was in their best interest to release it at least a month. Give it a month and a half in between releases. I think it would have served both titles better. But in essence, you did what you did, so you got to live with it. And I think at this point in time, there's going to be some pushback because of it, because a lot of people are going to have to decide between one and the other, especially before Call of Duty comes out. But there's also some great titles as well. Skyrim Enhanced Edition is coming out. Dishonored 2, like we mentioned previously. I know Final Fantasy is also coming out. And The Last Guardian, believe it or not, it has not been canceled yet, or delayed. It is still going to be a reality very soon for us. So your thoughts on the fall gaming season? Is there any particular titles that you're looking forward to getting and picking up once the Black Friday sales hit? And is there any titles that you think people should go out of the way to avoid?
Yeah, Call of Duty. I'm sorry, I'm just biased towards Call of Duty, but it's funny how all these games that you can get through the campaign in like 4 or 5 hours. Those games they're all done. They're all behind us now, except Call of Duty. But now you have these games coming out where, like Skyrim, you literally can devote 200, 300 hours of your life to playing this game. I imagine it's gonna be the same thing with Final Fantasy. So gamers going forward, they're gonna have to put in a lot of couch time. I'm looking forward to playing all these games, but I'm just not looking forward to all the stuff I won't get done and the weight I'll gain and all the stuff that comes with it. But hey, let's play some games, huh?
Indeed. And I'm still looking forward to Last Guardian from a nostalgic standpoint. I understand it will never meet the expectations sales wise. I probably will not even come close to meeting the expectations from a critical standpoint. But it's like a car crash to me, and you just cannot help avoiding to take a look. And I'm very interested to take a look to see what is the eventual finished product for The Last Guardian. But there's a lot of great titles coming out. We're going to keep you in tune with everything going on from our Game Source Facebook page, and also games at Game Source on Twitter. That's at Game Source on Twitter and Game Source on Facebook. We provide hundreds of stories each and every week on the video game scene, so look out for it there. We're going to keep you updated on all the latest happenings in the video gaming scene from Game Source at Facebook and at Game Source on Twitter. But it is a great time indeed to be a gaming fan. And as we get closer to the holiday season, as we get closer to the Black Friday season, keep your eyes peeled there, because we're going to be making sure that you know the latest and greatest deals going on all your favorite games and all the games that you want to add to your collection. So for me, I think that's going to be coming to an end of our taping tonight. Josh, did you have any final words tonight on what's going on with you, Ghost Toasters? Congratulations, you suck. And also how people can get a hold of your current book, Vendetta Dark.
That I do. You can get a hold of my current book, Vendetta Dark, on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble. If you go to Barnes & Noble, and if this would actually be doing me a favor, if you go to Barnes & Noble and you request them to put my book in stores, not only can you pick up a copy, but more people can read the book. So that would be cool. Congratulations, You Suck will be coming soon. I don't have a hard release date yet. I want to say December, but it could be January. I want to make it the best as possible for you guys. And let's talk about Ghost Toasters. So Ghost Toasters is the first episode's up right now on YouTube. You just go, or you can check it out on Pop Culture Cosmos. but you just search out Ghost Toasters episode 1, and it'll pop up. The second episode will be up Saturday, and the second half of the second episode will be up on Monday. So check it out, and if you leave some comments, if you have some ideas of what you want to see in the next episode, it's a really stupid show, so it could be a really stupid idea. So I'm open to suggestions. I want to hear from you guys. Just comment, and I'll take a look at it. Thank you.
Well, thank you indeed, and we are definitely looking forward to that. And as soon as I get it to chance to see it, I will let you know some thoughts on it as well. But it will definitely be available coming up right here on our popculturecosmos.wordpress.com front page, right on the right-hand side, where you see all of our videos, all of our shows, and our latest episodes there as well. So for me, Gerald Glassford, and for Josh Peterson.
Hey, thanks, guys.
We want to thank you for watching. Want to thank you for listening. It's another beautiful day in paradise, and here's hoping you have yourself a great day.